Welcome to the Explainer. So when you bite into an apple or stir sugar into your morning coffee, you're actually interacting with the very tail end of an unbelievably complex global supply chain. But what's going on behind the curtain? Well, today we are looking at the massive, value-adding middleman sector of the global food system. Our goal is to see exactly how this crucial link in the chain is measured, managed, and ultimately held financially accountable for its sustainability. It's kind of a fascinating question, isn't it? How do we measure the sustainability of the food system way before it even reaches the grocery store, or before it becomes a packaged consumer good? We usually focus our attention on the farmer growing the crops or the final retail brand selling the product, but there is just this colossal industrial engine operating right between the two, and that engine is exactly what we're putting under the microscope today.
Okay, let's dive into this. To make sense of this massive global engine, we really need a standardized language. That brings us to FBAG. This is the Specific Sustainable Industry Classification System, or SICS, code designated for the agricultural products industry, sitting within the broader food and beverage sector. So whenever you see FBAG in a financial or sustainability report, this is the exact slice of the economy they're talking about. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. Decoding agricultural products. 2. Mapping the core activities. 3. Measuring environmental impact. 4. Food and workforce safety. And 5. Securing the supply chain. Let's get into it. Section 1. Decoding agricultural products. Understanding FBAG. The ultimate toolkit we're using today comes straight from the SASB Standards, which are now maintained under the International Sustainability Standards Board, or ISSB. Now, the ISSB maintains 77 of these industry-specific standards. Why? Well, because a software company and a grain miller face completely different sustainability-related financial risks. These standards help investors pinpoint the exact risks and opportunities that are reasonably expected to affect an ag company's cash flows, access to finance, or cost of capital over the short, medium, and long term. And this brilliantly illustrates how the framework operates. Instead of getting bogged down in dozens of individual data points, the standards chunk these metrics into 5 core buckets: greenhouse gas emissions, energy and water management, food safety, workforce safety, and finally, supply chain impact. Section 2. Mapping the core activities. The FBAG value chain. The core activities of the FAIG industry flow in a very specific sequence. You see, entities in this space generally do not grow the food themselves. Instead, they purchase agricultural products from third-party growers, either directly or indirectly. And once they have those raw materials, they conduct major value-adding activities. Step 1, they process the raw materials in massive manufacturing facilities. Step 2, they trade them on global markets. And Step 3, they distribute them at wholesale levels to consumer and industrial businesses. And what exactly is flowing through this processing, trading, and distributing pipeline? We are talking about the absolute foundational building blocks of the global diet: fruits, vegetables, grains, sugar, consumable oils, maize, soybeans, and yes, even animal feed. So keep in mind, the sustainability framework we are decoding today literally applies just as much to the sugar in your coffee as it does to the feed given to livestock all around the world. It's an incredibly vast footprint. Section 3. Measuring environmental impact. Emissions, energy, and water. Okay, so when tracking the environmental impact of all that activity, investors look at a few main pillars. They track gross global Scope 1 emissions from processing and transport, alongside the total operational energy consumed. But perhaps most critically, they track water. Companies absolutely must disclose total water withdrawn and consumed, but more importantly, the percentage of that water located in regions with high or extremely high baseline water stress. Why does this matter so much? Because crop yields, operational continuity, and global food prices fluctuate directly with resource scarcity. If a milling facility operates in a drought-stricken region, that isn't just an environmental issue. That is a massive financial risk. Section 4. Safety, food and workforce. Accountability metrics. Now, to actually ensure food safety, these facilities undergo rigorous Global Food Safety Initiative, or GFSI, audits. The SASB standards require companies to disclose their non-conformance rates, distinguishing between major and minor issues. It's a key difference. A minor non-conformance is usually just an isolated or random incident presenting low risk. But a major non-conformance? That is severe.
It means there is an immediate danger to life or a systemic violation of regulatory requirements that demands the auditor escalate the situation immediately. Companies also have to disclose their corrective action rates, meaning how fast and how effectively do they actually fix these problems. And let's face it, when food safety fails, recalls happen. The standards require full transparency here. Companies must disclose the total number of recalls, whether they were voluntary or involuntary. But it's not just a basic body count of incidents. They actually have to disclose the total weight of the recalled food in metric tons. Why do they do that? Because pulling a product off the market crushes brand reputation, slashes revenues, and involves incredibly costly fines. Tracking the sheer metric tonnage gives investors a true sense of the absolute financial scale of a food safety failure. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that number right there. 200,000. When agricultural products companies calculate their total recordable incident rate, or TIR, for worker injuries and illnesses, the formula takes the incident count, multiplies it by 200,000, and divides it by total hours worked. Why 200,000? Well, that represents the baseline hours worked by 100 full-time workers putting in 40 hours a week for 50 weeks a year. It basically standardizes the data, which allows investors to directly compare the safety cultures of different companies, apples to apples, whether they employ a few hundred direct employees or thousands of contract workers. Section 5, Securing the Supply Chain. Ingredient sourcing. So moving down the line, entities must track the percentage of products sourced from certified sustainable suppliers, like Fairtrade or the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil. But beyond that, they have to manage a web of complex, shifting variables, things like global trade restrictions, consumer preferences around GMOs, or the specific climate change risks threatening their principal crops, which are those accounting for 10% or more of their revenue. And get this, they have to track all of this whether they contract directly with farmers or just source blindly as a commodity on the spot market. So, the crucial point is this. In the agricultural products industry, sustainability is not just about good PR. It is literally the core of supply chain management. If a Tier 1 supplier uses poor environmental practices, depletes local water, or utilizes forced labor, it leads directly to crop supply disruptions, regulatory fines, and permanent reputational damage. It heavily threatens the company's bottom line and, frankly, the global food supply. Which leaves us with a critical thought to ponder today. We've seen the massive scale of the processing and trading sector and how tightly intertwined its financial success is with its environmental and social practices. So, if managing these sustainability risks is truly what keeps global food prices stable and raw materials flowing smoothly, is your portfolio looking closely enough at the supply chain? It might just be time to take a second look. Thanks for joining us for this explainer, and as always, keep asking the big questions.